Yes. Before we get started, I just wanted to ask the board if they would be okay with us doing a moment of silence at next board meeting for President Carter. To honor him.
Yes.
Yes.
I grabbed a handful of peanuts when I heard the news.
He does have a tie to Schenectady County
Yes, that's
and Rotterdam, and I believe he was also involved in off with a old nuclear power plant that used to be off Sacandaga Road. So
his director of budgeting was my professor at Rockefeller. Really brilliant fella.
Gonna get Village of Scotia on the map, yeah.
Our first item tonight, the National Fitness Campaign presentation is postponed. The individual who is going to present is not available. So we'll move to item number 3.
I'll just say on item number 2 that as the person who made the initial connection that I'll keep tabs. If too long goes by, I'll reach out to whoever there is taking over and see if we can get them in, because I think timing wise, we probably want that presentation sooner than later.
Yeah.
I will just encourage everybody that in the email that he sent to cancel, there is that video. So if people haven't already watched it, it would probably be really good to watch it
It is.
first. So
Thanks. Number 3. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion approving the technical assistant grant contract for Flint House.
I'll
Authorizing
second.
you to sign that contract.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So moved. I'll sign that tonight. We'll have it ready. Number 4. Can I get a motion?
I will make a motion authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement with Ingenuity Engineering and Design, PLLC, for an engineering structural analysis of the Flint House in the amount of $2,978.
I'll second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
This is moving.
So move.
Everybody's on the phone, and I just wanted to say thank you for her
So this is just
persistence.
different amount.
Oh.
We'll just amend.
Oh, do you want me
We'll
to-
amend the amount.
Yeah, we got it late.
Do you want me to just change it?
Yeah.
So the, it is 3680 plus 4288 in mileage.
Okay.
So
I will amend my previous motion to the new dollar amount of $3,680 plus $42.88 in mileage.
Okay, I will second.
Can
I will amend the second.
Can I, all in favor of the amended motion?
Aye.
Anyone oppose the amended motion? So moved. Next on our agenda is a discussion of the strategic. Next is a discussion of our strategic plan development. I put together a outline for us. I asked trustee Cook to take a quick look at it. He had some edits. Basically what it does is it just identifies a concept of development and then some recommended next steps and timeframes. What I would like to do would be to share this with the board members and pull some additional resources that I found, and I think Justin's seen a couple as well, and I'll share those with the board members. And the timeframes and the next steps are spread over the next year with a final plan to be in place by February of 24. Or we're going backwards, February 26th. And so if the board is okay with that, I'd like to offer this up. I'll put it in the drive for folks and we'll start moving forward with this. The timeframes works out so that we'll have public forums about a month apart, but leave us opportunities to have discussions around what the public is identified and to make sure that our community is involved in all the steps along the way here. Sound good?
And,
Okay.
I'd be happy to kind of put together a communication schedule of emails that can go out
Yep.
and notices for these public engagement sessions, because I think to the point of making sure enough voices are involved, as well as putting together a survey for those who may not necessarily be able to come in physically in person. We can certainly leverage some free resources to do that as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Justin. Next on our agenda is the discussion of the ethics board. This is our language for our ethics committee. I really wanted to focus more on the identifying of the board. Since the article hit the paper about the formation, we've had, I think, 5 inquiries of individuals who want to be on the board. As you'll notice that it's at least. So I think one of the things we need to start with is, one, what do we see as a operating number of people that we want to have? And I think the second one is that I do think we should have some kind of letter that people send in with describing their interest and reasoning for wanting to be a part of ethics committee. I think it's really important, and I've mentioned this to just about everyone, that folks understand exactly what it is being on the ethics committee involves, and what the role is and what the role isn't. But also that I think we should have something to judge who we're selecting by or identifying. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think let's keep the threshold pretty simple, right? I
Yeah,
mean, we want
yeah.
people who can sort of review a general set of ethics guidelines and advise us about it, right? I don't think we need people who are ethics experts by any means.
right,
So I think maybe it's as simple as sort of what's your background? Like, what do you sort of, what if any kind of expertise are you bringing to the table, and why are you interested?
exactly.
2 questions, like give us, it can be, and then I think let's have a process after that to either have some subset, or maybe we do it here where sort of people come and talk to us, and then we just, let's make this thing happen.
Yep.
Yes.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think it's also important for us, to be very clear as to what an ethics committee is, because I think ethics has become a pretty charged word in our partisan world. And as a result, I think the why is something that should be given far more weight than even kind of like professional background or experience. And I also think, knowing that this is just starting out, I would actually kind of err, on maybe having an ethics board of 3 to 5 and not really go much beyond 5.
Yeah.
Because this is a committee that is put together. If we have questions with regards, to procurement of a contract that may have, from what I gather in the village code, a procurement of a contract where there might be conflicts of interests, that they review this and provide guidance to the village board. With that said, I do think it's also important for them to list some potential conflicts of interests they may have.
Yeah.
Which could be both professional, and ensuring as multi-partisan as possible.
So I guess that my question is, how do we keep the process simple and make this happen while also kind of getting into some of those kind of concerns? Is that something we would want to see on the front end, or is that something we would want to do in a separate meeting with somebody to say, hey, do you have any potential conflicts of interest that might impact your ability?
Well, I mean, it would only be a third question.
It's a third question. Do you are you have a share or a stake in any company that does regular routine business with the Village of Scotia?
Right,
It's a
or
yes,
any other conflicts.
or any other conflicts of interest that we must be aware
Great.
of.
So simple, 3 questions. Sort
Yep,
of
and-
what is it that what is your background? Again, we don't need a resume or a CV, but like, tell us a little bit about yourself. Why do you want to do this? And do you have any potential conflicts of interest? Here's some examples, right? Do you
Yep.
have any of the following or anything we haven't thought of? And then and I don't mind if we just want to have I don't know how we want to kind of get through a screening process. I mean, I don't know that I want to get into the business of like, if we want to have an ethics committee, then I think we can't have a super rigorous screening process for that, because in essence, that's sort of a
Be-
gray area right in of itself, right? Like,
Yeah.
what if we're screening out somebody that somebody doesn't like or something? Well, that's a conflict of interest right there.
Yeah. I like the idea of 5, only because if somebody can't make
Max.
it, we still have, yeah,
Yeah.
a max of 5, that we still have a majority.
Mayor, it does say, you know, they have to reside in the village.
Yep, so it's,
It might be to someone who's interested
Sure.
in the town of Glenville, and also it says at least 3 members
Yep.
to be appointed, and then 1 member who is an elected or appointed village employee of the village.
right. So I would say if folks are okay with 5 individuals, I can either put together, or somebody wants to put together a letter quickly on those 3 questions. I think we should include our description of our ethics committee here. I'll put together a quick draft. I'll get it out to people by
Are
Friday.
you able to add this as an attachment to the
Yeah.
constant contact to like the email?
Yep.
Okay.
Does NICOM have any?
I can read what Nikon might have.
I mean, you know, or even like, you know, there's agencies that kind of specialize in this type of stuff, and I'd be curious about any white papers or information.
I did pull some stuff off Nikon. I can send that along with the letter.
Right.
To you
Because it
guys.
says right here in under 24-5, you know, the opinions of the Board of Ethics shall be advisory and confidential, and in no event shall the identity of the village employee be disclosed except to such authorized persons and agencies. What
Yeah.
does that mean? Does that mean all members of this committee have non-disclosure agreements?
Well, I think they like. Yeah, well, I don't think they have agreements, but I think it's an understanding that they have to have that, you know, what's discussed doesn't get discussed.
Yeah.
elsewhere.
Yeah, that's why I had put together this list of rules that talked about that one, Justin, because I was worried about that one myself. And also that this is not a head hunting. This is, as you, I think,
Yeah.
were alluding to.
Yeah.
So-
I'm happy to take a shot at a draft of
Okay.
a quick
Good.
email that you can send out. I'll have that to you within a day or so.
Perfect.
And then if you want to check out what Nikon has and then figure out what we're going to
If I want to
attach.
add anything else,
Again, I think let's,
and then we'll get it out. Yeah, I'd like to do this
in
by
the
next
spirit of
week.
thing, let's keep it.
Yep,
We want to make this
Yeah.
accessible for somebody to join.
yes.
You don't need to be an attorney. No offense. Attorneys.
All right.
Slap.
Next, on our agenda is a discussion to establish a fireworks volunteer committee. Trustee Cook and I were discussing this. It's not a one-person job. Do you want to take a?
Absolutely. So 7 months, countdown starts now. And you know, we learned a lot last year. You know, and while a lot of the public safety elements you know, are kind of something that's dealt with, you know, through the police and fire department, more of the planning of the family friendly activities, the recruiting of local vendors for food and entertainment, raising funds to help offset the costs of this event, as well as helping to promote the event, while also being available the day of to kind of like assist with, you know, the many different elements of putting on an event requires, you know, in my experience, a team. You know, a team of people are passionate about this. And, you know, and that's the only way this is going to be sustainable going forward. So, you know, this committee, you know, would meet monthly from now through the week before the fireworks, and really knock out those 5 items. You know, we have I kept a lot of records of, you know, partner organizations who've, you know, already at the end of last year's event said they'd be willing to come back. It would be nice to be able to find a volunteer who's on the committee to go and make those connections and bring them back, as well as work together to identify other potential partners for activities that could come in and really kind of flush it out. you know, one of the things that this planning committee is not is to replace or to be involved in any of the public safety discussions. I think that's very clear that public safety, especially in today's climate, needs to remain with the police and fire department and village employees. And the volunteers that we have will not be used in such a way that would be confused with any kind of public safety role. So I think that's important. You know, but day of stuff, it's helping to put out, you know, maybe, you know, signage, helping to put up some of the barriers and traffic cones within the event frame. You know, but that's the most important element is going to be this fundraising part, as well as the promotion part.
Yeah, and I do think, I don't want to undervalue doing some of the work the day of the event, because you and I were running back and forth at times trying to make sure
Yep.
this vendor wasn't supposed to be here.
Yeah,
and-
like, you know, checking the vendor permits, checking in vendors, coordinating, you know, coordinating who can pull their car in to unload versus people who cannot. You know, the other element, we are coming up to the bicentennial of the 250th anniversary, or whatever, it's not the bicentennial. It's the 250th
250th.
anniversary of, you know, the Revolutionary War. And, you know, one of the things that, you know, I would like to continue, you know, kind of moving in is keeping historical education and living history kind of like a unique component of this event. And again, it's, you know, maybe bringing in history teachers that, you know, have that experience, that can put together kid-friendly activities that really promote this, the idea of history and civics education.
It's been 250 years since 1776.
Correct.
Amazing.
So.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
I just want to add a comment on your statement about the interaction of public safety in the committee. I think it's important to have an interaction. You know, certainly the committee can't oversee it, but they're definitely need to work together to
Absolutely.
identify areas that are, you know,
Mhm.
how far apart should walkways be? Where are people going to gather and like that type of thing? And then coordination specifically, you know, last year, you know, Jumpin' Jacks had, you know, a great asset that they left open to the people that are working for them. So I mean, just as a general
Right.
rule, yeah, they're not responsible for planning it, but they need to know about it. They need to coordinate
Correct.
directly again. So
Correct.
they need to know it's complete.
Right.
And that they're not surprised by anything that comes in. So that
I think it was more along the lines that they wouldn't be developing the plan.
They wouldn't be developing the plan. If anything, like we would be turning to the public safety team to find out the appropriate place for vendors to be.
Yeah.
We'd be turning to village staff to tell us, you know, where we can and cannot have things. So, and again, kind of creating this clear delineation. So what is the chartered or the established purpose of this planning committee? The big things are planning activities, making sure we bring the fun, ensuring that there's, you know, donations and, you know, any doubt, you'd be surprised. I've been,
bring the fun. I mean,
you know, but sometimes I found without clear guidance, sometimes planning committees can kind of flounder or go in areas or directions where it's not necessary. They don't necessarily have the expertise.
So just a quick question. So since this is now the second kind of piece we've talked about tonight, that's like hey, get in, like, here's opportunities to get involved. Do we want to put these two things together in an email that goes out from the mayor to say, here's these two opportunities. Do you not want to muddy the waters? Justin?
Yeah.
So I personally find like these are two very different volunteer opportunities. One is actually more of a civic engagement opportunity. This is literally a community volunteer opportunity. Both are important. I think we should go out as a separate email.
Yeah, I
I
think-
drafted one that could easily go out.
Yeah, I
That's-
think
that's
we're gonna
good.
do the ethics first, and then next board meeting, which is next week, we're going to pass a resolution to create this
Great.
committee.
Sounds awesome.
And then
That's
we'll
what I
do
was gonna
the draft a letter.
Yep.
say. I didn't know if time was more of the
can
essence.
I mean,
forward that.
time is of the essence. The good news is I have like 2 or 3 people who've already reached out from last year wanting to be on the planning committee. So as long as we have a commitment to get this, you know, committee officially formed as a village committee at the next board meeting, and, you know, we send this out, then I can work through, you know, the social media channels that we established last year for this to kind of amplify it a little bit more.
Got it.
Maybe write a letter to the editor.
Got it. Sorry, can I go back to the ethics committee thing just
Okay.
for a question about that? So we're gonna.
Just a second, are we set with this?
Unless anyone has any questions.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm gonna draft an email that
Yep.
goes out. We didn't finalize what we're gonna have the process be after that. So are we gonna have some subset of this group meet with the folks that send applications in? If we get 5, are we just gonna, as long as there's no major issues with any of those 5, we're just gonna say, great, you 5 are in? What do we want to do process wise?
We probably need a process that we're gonna follow even before, regardless of whether we get 5 or don't get 5. I think we're definitely gonna get 5 because I've already had 5 people call with interest.
I mean,
We can do it one of 2 ways. We can do it by reviewing them, the letters, and making selections, or we could do it through
Again, I think this
2 of
is,
us meeting with somebody.
this is where like, again, best practice, right? There's best practice established somewhere, maybe not, because every time an ethics committee is created somewhere, there's always some sort of controversy. So I'd be curious to see if there's anything from NICOM or even New York State to see if there is best practice for
Let me
select.
call John tomorrow
great.
in NICOM and I'll get back to you.
And as long as we have an answer for that by the time we've got people's interests coming in, we're good.
Yeah,
Great.
so I'll call him
Thank
tomorrow.
you. Appreciate that.
Even if it's done by Lydia, I don't know if this is something that maybe you can kind of look through. I like you, I feel a little awkward.
Yeah.
As a village elected official, kind of going through and picking and choosing who's on the ethics committee, who's not. So
Right. Or
If-
even,
Because honestly, it's probably. The issues are gonna come up with people of authority.
Right.
Who are approving contracts and. So.
Yeah,
so-
yeah, so to me, like, I mean, I was about to say, like, I'd be happy to, but like, for me, like that's you're playing around with ethics even by being part of the screening process. So for me, I'd rather there be a screening process that is outside of the scope of this, of the elected members of the board, so that it's really a clean.
let me see
Say that the board of trustees.
the board appoints them.
Right.
Maybe someone else should do.
Right, that's sort of what I mean, like, so that somebody else is saying like, I'm making the recommendation to appoint the following people, but it's like, let's just say, for example, I say, I'm happy to screen everybody, right? And we get 7 applications, and I say, these are the 5 we should go with, and I'm bringing them here to the board, and then I'm voting on it.
Let me reach out to John and Wade tomorrow and see where they go
I'm not
with
trying to
this.
overly complicate it, but like, if you're gonna do it right.
Yeah, but
Right.
so they may have some, rather than reinvent the wheel, they may already know the way other communities have done this and followed it. And Lydia, you may have from your days.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not trying to
them.
beat it to death, but
What you had there was written when I was there. But
Yeah.
In terms of, how they go about interviewing.
Let me reach out to them
great.
rather than guess back and forth.
Thank
Okay?
you.
And
Sorry.
I think by the transparency, like maybe what we need to draft before the next meeting is, an expectation of what people bring to the table, that they're obviously what's written in law, but it's like that, what does it mean by we want people who have a sense of purpose? Someone who can think objectively, look objectively at a situation, understand where their biases may lay, and affirm, through examples in their own life of ways where they've maybe navigated this type of thing. To me, like, that is probably the most substantive part of this whole processing. And if someone can actually write that out and articulate that, that's the people we want on this ethics board. People who can think objectively about very subjective things.
So let's see what you put together for your letter with questions.
Yeah. And
And then we'll get
let's
it
find out what
around.
the best practices.
Okay?
God, I'm not trying to beat it to death, but
Nope.
if we're doing
It's
it, we
important.
gotta have it
Good.
done right.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I got a quick clarification.
So,
on the,
thank you.
That was approved earlier. So the grant is for $2,978, which should be 80% of the 3680. So we're only responsible for like $800. So I think that's a win for.
Yeah.
we can accomplish more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Budgeted 1,600 and Walter Wheeler was 800 and this is 744. So all of the funds are budgeted.
Wonderful.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'd actually like to make a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing contracts and
Yep.
negotiations.
I'll second.
Going into exec.